1. Israeli attacks in Gaza, rising death toll and malnutrition crisis. 2. Tragic loss, children killed in Gaza airstrike amid ceasefire talks. 1. Israeli attacks in Gaza, rising death toll and malnutrition crisis. The ongoing conflict in Gaza has escalated dramatically, with recent Israeli airstrikes resulting in the tragic loss of at least 61 lives, including 2 individuals who were seeking aid. This alarming situation has prompted the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, to raise concerns about a significant increase in malnutrition rates among children in the besieged region. On Tuesday, medical sources reported that an Israeli airstrike on the Shati refugee camp in northern Gaza claimed the lives of at least 23 people, while many others sustained injuries. In a separate incident in southern Gaza, 2 women were killed, and around 30 individuals were injured near an aid distribution point located north of Rafah, which is operated by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, an organization that has faced considerable scrutiny and criticism. Since the GHF began its operations in late May, the UN has documented that at least 875 individuals have died while attempting to access much-needed aid in Gaza. The Palestinian Civil Defense reported that their teams have been working tirelessly, transporting at least 18 deceased individuals and numerous wounded since dawn, primarily due to the ongoing Israeli airstrikes in northern Gaza. In a concerning development, Israel's military has issued a forced displacement order affecting Palestinians residing in 16 areas of northern Gaza. Jabalia, a town that has already suffered extensive damage, is one of the locations where residents are fleeing in fear and confusion. Al Jazeera's Moth Al-Khala reported that people are resorting to using cars and donkeys to evacuate, all while heading into the unknown, unsure of their destination. The lack of fuel has exacerbated the chaos, leaving many struggling to find transportation. In another tragic incident, an Israeli strike hit a tent in Gaza City that was sheltering displaced individuals, resulting in the deaths of 6 people, according to the Civil Defense Agency. As the violence continues, health teams from UNRWA have issued a stark warning regarding rising malnutrition rates, particularly since the Israeli siege was intensified over 4 months ago. UNRWA head General Philippe Lazzarini revealed that 1 in 10 children screened since the beginning of 2024 has been found to be malnourished. The agency has characterized the malnutrition crisis in Gaza as engineered and man-made, highlighting the dire humanitarian situation. This warning coincides with a meeting of European Union foreign ministers in Brussels, where discussions were held regarding potential actions against Israel in response to its military actions in Gaza, especially if the humanitarian conditions do not improve. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas presented 10 possible measures, which could include suspending the entire cooperation agreement with Israel, limiting trade relations, imposing sanctions on Israeli officials, and even halting visa-free travel. Despite the growing outrage over the devastation in Gaza, EU member states remain divided on how to address the situation, and no consensus was reached during the meeting. Kallas emphasized that the goal is not to punish Israel but to genuinely improve the humanitarian conditions in Gaza. This meeting followed a deal largely negotiated by Kallas and Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, which aimed to facilitate the entry of essential food and fuel into the coastal enclave, home to 2.3 million people who have endured over 21 months of relentless assaults amid a crippling blockade. Kallas noted that while border crossings have been opened and more aid trucks are entering Gaza, the situation remains untenable, indicating that the measures taken so far are insufficient. EU officials have expressed ethical and safety concerns regarding cooperation with the GHF, leading to a rejection of any partnership with the organization. In light of the ongoing conflict, several European nations, including Ireland, the Netherlands, and Spain, have increasingly called for a reassessment of the EU's relationship with Israel. A report from the European Commission indicated that there are indications that Israel's actions in Gaza may violate human rights obligations outlined in the agreement governing EU-Israel relations. However, the bloc remains divided on how to respond effectively. Public pressure regarding Israel's actions in Gaza has played a crucial role in making the new humanitarian deal possible, according to Dutch Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp, who emphasized the importance of maintaining unity among the 27 EU member states. Kallas has committed to providing updates to EU nations every 2 weeks on the amount of aid successfully reaching Gaza. Irish Foreign Minister Thomas Byrne expressed concern that, despite some minor actions, the situation remains dire, with ongoing violence and continued denial of access to food and water. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez Bueno stated that discussions regarding the deal are ongoing, and the EU will closely monitor Israel's compliance with the agreement. He stressed that this agreement is not the final solution, the ultimate goal must be to end the war. Protests have erupted across Europe, including a small demonstration outside the European Council on Tuesday, where ministers were discussing the aid plan. Protesters in Brussels called for more decisive actions to halt Israel's offensive in Gaza, where famine is looming, and the healthcare system is on the brink of collapse. Alexis de Suif, vice president of the International Federation for Human Rights, urged the EU to agree on a package of sanctions against Israel to end what he termed genocide and to facilitate humanitarian aid into Gaza. Human rights organizations have largely criticized the EU's actions as inadequate. Agnes Callamard, Secretary General of Amnesty International, described the EU's inaction as more than political cowardice, warning that each failure to act increases the risk of complicity in Israel's actions. She cautioned that this sends a dangerous message to those committing atrocities, suggesting they will not only escape punishment but may also be rewarded. 2. Tragic loss, children killed in Gaza airstrike amid ceasefire talks. In a tragic turn of events, several children lost their lives due to an Israeli airstrike that struck a water distribution point in central Gaza on Sunday, according to health officials. This incident is part of a series of deadly occurrences in the region, coinciding with faltering ceasefire negotiations in Doha. Initially, there was a sense of optimism surrounding the latest round of talks, but after several days of discussions, both parties began blaming each other for the lack of progress. Meanwhile, Israel's military operations have continued unabated since the last ceasefire ended in March. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported that in just the past 24 hours, 139 bodies were taken to hospitals in Gaza, with many victims still trapped under debris. This figure marks the highest death toll reported since July 2, bringing the total number of fatalities since October 7, 2023, to a staggering 58,026. The airstrike on Sunday resulted in the deaths of 6 children and 4 other individuals at the water distribution site, as confirmed by Al-Adha Hospital. Disturbing footage from the scene depicted numerous casualties, including children, surrounded by buckets and water containers. The Israeli military admitted that the airstrike, which was aimed at an Islamic Jihad terrorist, went awry, with the munition landing far from its intended target. They stated that the incident is currently under investigation. Additionally, in another airstrike in central Gaza on the same day, at least 12 people were killed and over 40 injured when an Israeli strike hit a busy intersection. Among the deceased was a well-respected doctor, Ahmad Kandil, who was recognized by the health ministry as one of Gaza's leading medical professionals. Sam Rose, the acting director of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, expressed grave concerns about the deteriorating conditions in Gaza, stating, "The situation on the ground is worse than it has ever been. There is a tragic and horrific inevitability about this. The longer it continues, the more dire it becomes." He highlighted the impossible choices faced by Palestinians, who must choose between starvation and risking their lives to obtain aid. The heavy toll on Sunday followed a series of deadly incidents on Saturday, where 27 individuals were killed and many more injured when Israeli forces opened fire on people attempting to receive aid from a distribution site near southern Rafah, managed by the US-supported Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF. The GHF refuted these claims, asserting that there were no incidents at or near their sites on that day. The Israeli military also denied any injuries resulting from gunfire from its troops in the area but mentioned that they were reviewing the reports. In a concerning report, the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, revealed that their field hospital near the site treated 132 patients with weapon-related injuries, with 25 declared dead upon arrival and 6 more dying after admission. This marked the highest number of fatalities since the hospital began operations in May 2024. The ICRC condemned the situation, stating, "This is unacceptable." The alarming frequency and scale of these mass casualty incidents highlight the horrific conditions civilians in Gaza are enduring. According to the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, nearly 800 Palestinians have been killed while trying to access aid in Gaza between late May and July 7, coinciding with the GHF's operational start. In another part of Gaza, 13 individuals were killed in airstrikes at the Al-Shati refugee camp near Gaza City on Saturday, with 40 more injured, as reported by Mohammed Abu Salmiya, director of Al-Shifa Hospital. Geolocated video evidence confirmed that at least one child was among the victims. The Israel Defense Forces announced on Sunday that they had destroyed weapons in tunnels utilized by Hamas in northern Gaza, with airstrikes targeting over 150 locations across the Gaza Strip, including booby-trapped buildings and weapon depots. As casualties continue to rise, discussions regarding a new ceasefire and hostage negotiations are ongoing in Doha, although optimism for a swift resolution has diminished. U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, mentioned he was meeting with Qatari officials on the sidelines of a football match in New Jersey, expressing hope for a ceasefire in Gaza. Despite several days of talks, significant gaps remain between Israel and Hamas. An Israeli source familiar with the negotiations indicated that a key issue is the redeployment of the Israeli military in Gaza once a ceasefire is established. The latest proposal suggested a military withdrawal from parts of northern Gaza on the first day of the ceasefire and from parts of southern Gaza on the seventh day. The specifics of these plans were left for further negotiations between Israel and Hamas, which appears to be a major sticking point. A senior Hamas official stated that the talks had stalled, claiming Israel introduced new conditions, including updated deployment maps for the Israeli army's presence in Gaza. In a video message released on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu stated that Israel had accepted the latest ceasefire proposal from U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, but Hamas had turned it down. "We accepted the deal, the Witkoff deal, and even the subsequent version proposed by the mediators, we accepted that too. Hamas rejected it," Netanyahu asserted. He accused Hamas of wanting to remain in Gaza to rearm and continue its attacks. Netanyahu emphasized his commitment to securing the release of hostages and defeating Hamas, stating, "We must insist on the release of the hostages and the second objective of the war in Gaza, the elimination of Hamas, to ensure that Gaza will never again pose a threat to Israel. I will not compromise on these missions," he added firmly. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum in Israel released a statement on Sunday, accusing Netanyahu of creating a false impression that a comprehensive deal is unattainable, contrary to public sentiment. They warned, anyone who sabotages such an agreement is willfully acting against the Israeli people for political survival, adding, that is how history will remember him. Recent polls in Israel indicate a strong public desire for a deal that would conclude the war and secure the return of all hostages, both living and deceased. A survey conducted for Israel's Channel 12 revealed that 74% of respondents believe Israel should end the war in Gaza in exchange for the return of all abductees in one go, while only 8% support the phased approach that the government is currently advocating.